What's going on, folks? This is another episode, so you know what you're here for if you have came across this channel. If this is your first time here, please hit that like and subscribe button. Also hit that bell so you can be notified when another video drops. I apologize for the late reaction to the third episode of Atlanta, but here we go. This episode is titled, not this episode, but the Atlanta episode is titled The Old Man and the Tree. And so the titles are always kind of interesting because you kind of want to know what you're getting into just from the title alone. You know, once again, 3 slaps, and then you saw what that was about. So anyway, how do I want to start this? So the gang is all here. There's no other episode like the first one where it had nothing to do with the main story. The whole gang, Ern, Van, Darius, Paper Boi, aka Alfred, they're all walking on the way to some billionaire's house party or get together, whatever you want to call it. And they're just about to get into, see what type of adventure they're about to get into. One of the things I got nervous about at the very beginning, when you see them walking, you see this white woman who's nosy, who's like looking on nosy outside of a window, and she's on the phone. So I thought we was going to get some type of, police altercation off rip just from that scene alone. But, it was a false alarm. They just go, there's nothing comes of that phone call of whoever that white woman was talking to. So they get to the billionaire's home. They're greeted by, I guess, a fairly rude door woman. I wouldn't call her a bouncer, but she was kind of checking them in. Nevertheless, this billionaire, he comes from money, right? His family is responsible for providing the very first bank loan ever. So that's how they got their money. And so this guy named Will, I don't know, he probably looked like he was in his late 40s-ish, late 40s. Early 50s at the oldest, I guess. But nevertheless, he invites them to the thing, and they're put off at first because it was like a storefront, or it looked like a ran down storefront. But when they proceed into the house, they see, oh damn, that's a decoy, and this guy really is living lavish. It's a fancy house, everything like that. Billionaire boy club for real. Place is so fancy that they even have a Nando's in this house, and all the food is free. So already the gang is all impressed and wowed and stuff like that. And so now we get to see where the adventure takes them. It seems like all 4 of them kind of venture off on their own thing. You have Paper Boi, who ends up talking to the old man of this episode. Once again, old man in the tree. Paper Boi ends up talking to this elderly gentleman by the name of Fernando. Darius wanders off to do his own thing, and he ends up talking to a guy by the name of Socks, just like what you wear on your feet, socks. And Van is kind of just doing Van, but Ern, he ends up continuing to, matter of fact, Van and Ern both talk to the billionaire whose name is Will. And the billionaire really wants to show off his artist to Ern. Not musical artist, but literally like an artist, like painter, inspirational photographs, all that type of stuff. An artist, like a real artist. And so, once again, we have 3 kind of mini stories throughout this episode. And, I think the reoccurring theme, at least in my opinion, was kind of like white guilt. That's the way I put it. If you've seen this episode, you understand why. Or maybe you understand why. Some of these episodes can be interpreted in so many different ways and directions. But I'm going to go with white guilt. Let's start off with Darius. So when Darius, he's on his own, venturing throughout the house like he normally does. And this is kind of white guilt story number 1. He gets this woman's attention. She looks like she's of Korean descent or Asian descent. And immediately he just simply says, "Excuse me, miss," or gets her attention. And immediately she just says no. And he's kind of off put, like, "You don't even know what I'm gonna ask yet." And she just says, "Look, I'm engaged, so no thank you, I'm in a relationship." And Darius proceeds to say, "Oh, I just wanted you to pass the gin that's behind you so I could pour me a drink." And then all of a sudden she gets embarrassed and was like, "I am so sorry. Normally, I get hit on by a lot of black guys, so I'm kind of used to it." And Darius doesn't really think anything of it. They proceed to have a small, some type of small talk that's somewhat meaningless. And no, actually, yeah, it is kind of meaningless. But they end up talking about, okay, well, Darius is like, I can understand where black guys would hit on you. You guys like hip hop, we like anime. I get the connection. Just some small light dialogue, and that was really it. The guy that he kind of befriends in this house, Socks, he heard the whole conversation and he felt like she was being racist, being, very bigoted and so forth. And he was just kind of went overboard about, yeah, I mean, you don't got to take that, man, this and the third. And Darius, on the other hand, is like, it wasn't that deep. It wasn't that deep. And, and that pretty much spirals out of control to where Socks is telling everybody that he can, every white person that he runs into, about what he feels like happened to Darius, and that becomes the whole thing. White guilt story when it comes to Earn and Van. And first off, I don't know what it is, but clearly something is going on with Van. Hopefully we'll see what that is later on in the season. I'm assuming it has maybe some type of depression, something that's just very emotionally taxing on Van. Clearly something is going on there, but that, I guess we'll get to the bottom of that as the season progresses. So anyway, Earn meets TJ, and he is not impressed with this artist's work. And, you try to be like a good, guest, or a respectful guest, I suppose. And he just can't find the words. Well, he wants to let the guy know, this artist sucks. Your idea about making your house into this, art, this hangout spot for artists to get inspiration to do their work is not going to work. But the artist TJ, who happens to be black, is kind of just, still trying to persuade, Earn and, the billionaire why this is a good idea. Nevertheless, Earn just kind of backs his way out of the conversation and finds his way out of it. And I just really think when it came to that whole situation, you really see why Earn kind of changed his view. But it's one of those things where it's like, do you really want to support another black person if his art is terrible, even though this billionaire is the guy who would make this artist very, very rich and just keep paying and putting into this artist? So that was kind of just like the awkward situation that Earn was put into. So once again, I really thought it was very interesting about what made his whole change of heart. Later on in the episode, we definitely see how, Earn starts looking at some of the, photographs on the in the hallway that are framed, and he definitely notices that this there's a picture of the very first loan that was ever presented, and you see a slave in the back, and so immediately Earn knows what's up. It's like, okay, this guy became billionaires off the slave, off the hard work and back of slaves, and so it's almost like he doesn't even care at this point if TJ does whatever type of get rich scheme and just drains all of the billionaire's money, even to the point where he was like, hey, you know what? This artist might need a manager. Manager being Earn, who is asking for 25% of whatever is put into that project. So you kind of get why he had that change of heart. And I definitely totally get it, man. And one of the things I like about Atlanta is it definitely always makes you think, and just on a whole scale of things. And one of the things that I wanted to do before even shooting this, I wanted to research about that. And one of the things I did come across is like, which I'm sure is common knowledge, maybe common knowledge to some folks, and to some other folks maybe it isn't. But banks were actually built off the backs of slaves themselves. Which bank it is, I can't remember the name, but you know how I do. I'll put it in the edits. There is a particular bank who actually publicly apologized about how it got its start from slaves. I believe it sent a apology letter to all of its employees, and things of that nature. But apparently the banking industry became very successful because it was built off the backs of slaves. And once again, at least for me, only speaking for myself, that's something that I looked into more just because of watching this episode. I'll keep it a bean with you. So I thought that was an interesting story. The Paper Boi story really doesn't have white guilt, in my opinion, but it definitely had an awkwardness to it. I mean, or maybe kind of a double standard. I would say it maybe had a double standard to it. For those that saw the episode, clearly, Paper Boi went into gambling. And just a quick side story, I hate gambling. All right, so when Paper Boi gets to the poker table, and they're like, "Hey man, it's a $20,000 minimum just to even sit at this table," and Paper Boi just says, "Oh really?" and he just dumps out all his money instead. I don't know how much it was, but it was definitely more than 20,000. So he could sit him and play. Nevertheless, yeah, so he ends up winning big off of the old man. And for some reason, the old man who owes him $40,000, he just gets up and leaves the table. And so does everyone else. And Paper Boi is left, with the shrug face, like, what just happened? Who's going to get me my $40,000 that I just won in this poker game? And unfortunately, it appears as if he never gets it. And so that's one of the questions that I did have, at least watching this episode, was it some unwritten rule that Paper Boi was supposed to let the old man win? Because apparently the old man seemed very affected by it. And just another question, like I said, what is really going on with Van? I'm sure that'll be answered soon. And also, at the end of the episode, as you all notice, I wonder if there's some falling out between Van and the friends. You notice after Paper Boi cuts down the old man's tree out of retaliation for not getting his money, all three of them just leave as soon as possible. And I noticed Van was the only one that wasn't in the car. But it does cut away to Van just at some random restaurant, I guess playing with her phone or something, and she immediately just declines the call that came from her. So a lot of unanswered questions. I know a lot of people have a lot of deep dives and different perspectives of these episodes. That's my best guess in this one. I just really thought it was kind of like the white guilt episode, because as I mentioned, I feel like the billionaire knows what his history was about, so he is purposely trying to dish out money to maybe try to make up as some type of roundabout reparations when it came to, at least in his case, black artists. Once again, you got the white guilt guy with Socks hearing Darius's conversation with the fiance, and that's another thing that was kind of funny. Every white person that Socks tells that story to, they all feel way more outraged than Darius does. Darius is just it's not that big of a deal. I don't know why I'm making a big deal about it. Just things of that nature. So that was kind of funny. Because I'm sure there are way worse racist examples that Darius have experienced, but nevertheless, another cool episode. I'm always gonna be looking forward to Atlanta every week. So yeah, man, I really felt like this was an episode discussing white guilt. Hate it or love it, that's just my opinion. Peace.